Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya
Oh,
bhagavati
okay. Acha, put your micro on mute.
krishnaya vasudevaya devaki
Mute से किसका कराऊं मैं?
nanda gopa kumaraya govindaya namo namah. Hare Krishna. Saturday evening Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam study. So last week we discussed Lord Krishna entering into Dwaraka. So today's topic is birth of Parīkṣit Maharaj. So what had happened is when Lord Krishna reached Dwaraka, then one day he was sitting with his parents,
Zoom पे करा तो फिर ही अंदर है.
and Vasudevji asked Krishna, asked Vasudev, Vasudev asked Shri Vasudev, that I heard about this Mahabharata Yuddha and you have been away for such a long time. Please tell us exactly what happened. And we heard that that war was very wonderful. And he says that yatha tad abhavat yuddham pandavanam mahatmana. In Mahabharata. And this is Vaishampayan Rishi speaking to Janmejaya. So after the war, when the Takshak came and he bit
पता नहीं किसका करना है. Mute थे का.
Vaishampayan, who is a disciple of Vyasadeva, and Janmejaya, who is Maharaj Janmejaya, who is king, who is son of Parīkṣit.
अच्छा इन्हें बोलना तो फिर करा mute.
So here Vasudevji asked Vasudev that youth Pandavana Mahatmana. So Pandav who were Mahatma, so that war happened between Pandav. Yatha, as it happened, and between then on other side he says Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Kripa, Shalva Adi Bhir Anuttam. So he says that war. So the significance here is that war was Uttam because it was for a good cause and it happened in Dharmashetra. Vasudevji asked Krishna one day that
ये पता नहीं किसका करना है. फटाफट
war and
क्या?
that happened. So let me just share my screen. At least they can
फिर खत्म हो गया. समय नहीं लगती.
is my screen. You can see the slide. I hope attendees on Zoom they can also see. Please requesting everyone. Yeah, please mute everyone. I hope my voice is audible. So here, as you can see, Krishna is sitting with Vasudeva and Mother Devaki and other Yadavas. So they were asking Krishna that please tell us, because those days there was only Sanjay could see what happened in the Kurukshetra, that battlefield.
नहीं मैं नहीं speak करती.
That was told everywhere that there is this great war happening. So many warriors got killed.
म्यूट ते करा ते म्यूट तो ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿਆ ਤੇ ਕਰਾਂ ਕੀ
Then Lord Krishna start narrating to Vasudevji and he tells him that if I tell you the whole pastime, the whole events, it will take hundreds of years. Let me tell you in summary. So Lord Krishna is now speaking to Vasudevji. So he tells him that the war happened and he says on the Kaurava side, the war was led by Bhishma. And then he says Kauravas, their army was 11 Akshohini. 11 Akshohini. Now to give you some indication of the numbers, so one Akshohini, it is described in the Adi Parvat. So one Akshohini army, what does it include? So one Akshohini has 21,810 chariot. 21,810 chariot. The 870 chariot, Ratha. 21,870 Gaja, elephants. 65,610 Turag, horses, warriors on horses. And 109,350 Padasena, and as it's on the feet. So this is one Akshohini. So Kauravas had 11 Akshohini and Pandavas had 7 Akshohini. So this was the size of the army. So Lord Krishna is telling Vasudevji that Bhishma was leading the Kaurava side and the Pandava side, it was led by Shikhandi. And it was so strategically arranged because Shikhandi was going to be the reason for Bhishma's death. So Shikhandi himself was not so great, but Shikhandi was protected by Arjuna. So that he can kill Shikhandi. Arjuna was protecting Shikhandi, on the other side, Bhishma was leading Kaurava. And then Lord Krishna tells Vasudevji that for 10 days, Bhishma was leading from Kaurava side, and then the war continued. By the end of 10 days, the Kaurava Sena was reduced to 9. At the end of 10 days, and the Pandavas were reduced to 5 Akshar. Those many soldiers or warriors got killed. Now on the 10th day, Shikhandi got in front of Bhishma and then he shot arrows on Bhishma. Arjuna used that opportunity and then he shot so many arrows that Bhishma.
Did you stop?
Bhishma as passing on. Then he says on this side, then after 10 days, Dronacharya became the leader of Kaurava's army. And then on this side, Pandava side, Drishtadumna became the leader of Pandava's army. Once again, there was a strategic reason. Drishtadumna was born through Yagna, and Maharaj Drupad had asked for a son who will kill Dronacharya. So Drishtadumna was born for that purpose only, to kill Dronacharya. So they made him commander of their army, and Dronacharya was made commander after Bhishma fell down on the battlefield. Now this fight continued for another 5 days. Another 5 days, Dronacharya and Drishtadumna. And then as you know, then after that 5 days, then there was a little lie spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yeah. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, there was an elephant got killed whose name was Ashwathama, Gajo Vanara. He said Ashwathama Hato Gajo Vanara. Whether Gaj, elephant or Nar, he didn't say. But Dronacharya only heard Ashwathama. Actually, no, he said Narova Gaja.
Was I? Volume वाला quick but.
And then Dronacharya.
Volume तो full है. जिंदा बच्चा. Speaker क्या हो रहा है?
15 days of war. Then on the Kaurava side, they made Karan as now commander of their army, and on this side they made now Arjuna as commander of Pandava's army.
पिक्चर ही होनी है फिर. नहीं वीडियो से चल दी भी है. पर वो लिखता है ये पेयर वीडियोस को. नहीं म्यूट है आया सी ना. म्यूट है. म्यूट. हाँ.
me stop sharing. Everyone is muted actually except me. Please type that is my voice. Requesting everyone to keep microphone muted. Right. Can you hear me now, Mataji's on the Zoom?
Prabhuji, we can hear you, but the sound is very, very meek, very slow. We can't hear you.
It's not very loud.
And there is a lot of disturbance also, Prabhuji.
Okay. So, yeah. So at the end of 15 days, what I was saying. So this is, yeah. So Lord Krishna is speaking to Vasudevji. So at the end of 15 days of the war, then Drishtadumna killed Dronacharya. And then on the Kaurava side, Kaurava army, then they made Karan as their commander. And on Pandava side, they made Arjun as the commander. Because Karan wanted to fight with Arjun and Arjun wanted to kill Karan. Yeah. So they were matching 1-to-1. And then by the time, at the end of 15 days, now Kaurava army was reduced to 5 Akshohini and Pandava army was reduced to 2 Akshohini. So you can see from 11 Akshohini to, they have reduced to 5 Akshohini and they have reduced from 7 to 2. So many people getting killed. Now within 2 days, Arjun also killed Karan. So that is the day number 17 in Mahabharata. Okay. On day 17, now Arjun killed Karan and then Kaurav, they made Shalya Naresh, Mother Naresh Shalya. They made him their commander of the army. And here they made Yudhishthira Maharaj as commander of the army. And it is said on the 18th day by the afternoon, Yudhishthira Maharaj killed Shalya Naresh also. So he was also killed. Now, as everyone was killed on the Kaurava battle, Kaurava side, they lost. They all were discouraged. Everyone was discouraged and Duryodhan then ran and he hid himself in a pond. As he himself in a pond, now Pandav army, whatever was remaining, they ran towards that pond and then Bhim started speaking very strong words, sarcastic words to Duryodhan. And it is called, they were like arrows. They were like Ban, they were like arrows but shooting from the mouth. Yeah. And Duryodhan then could not tolerate anymore and he came out of the pond. As he came out of the pond, then Bhimsen and between Duryodhan, there was a dual, fight happened between these two, Gada Yudh, and then Bhim killed Duryodhan. So this is how Lord Krishna described to Vasudevji. And then he also told him that on that night when Pandavas were celebrating, then he says on the Kaurav side, then only 3 people were left. Ashwathama, Kripacharya and Kritvarma. Only these 3 were left. And Kritvarma was a Yadav. He was the commander of the Narayani Sena. So when Lord Krishna gave his army to Duryodhan to fight, then the commander also went. So only Kritvarma was left, Ashwathama was left, and Kripacharya were. So only 3 were left. And on this side, they still had some army. But on that night, this is Bhagavan Krishna speaking to Vasudeva, describing to him how the Mahabharata battle. And then he says, on that night, Ashwathama, Kripacharya, and Kritvarma, they came. Even though Kripacharya and Kritvarma, they were telling Duryodhan, they were telling Ashwathama not to do this. But Ashwathama went ahead because he wanted to take revenge for his father's killing. He wanted to kill Drishtadumna. So he went into, and we have seen that, right? Son of Dron punished. And then Lord Krishna saying, he entered into their army camp and he killed all the remaining warriors. And then Krishna says to Vasudevji that after this war, only Pandavas Yuyutsu, and myself. From the Pandava side, Lord Krishna is saying only 7 people were left. Lord Krishna himself, 5 Pandavas, and Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu was also son of Dhritarashtra, but from a maidservant, right? And he decided not to fight. He took Pandava's shelter in the beginning itself. So Lord Krishna, when he concluded, then Subhadra was also there. Actually, when we discussed the last time Lord Krishna coming to Dwaraka, he said that Mother Subhadra had also gone with Krishna to Dwaraka. And Subhadra, because Subhadra was feeling very sad. She was missing home. She had lost Abhimanyu in the war. Yeah? So she was feeling very down. So she wanted to come and spend some time with her parents. And she hadn't seen Vasudeva and Devaki for such a long time. So she said, I also want to come. Now, as Lord Krishna stopped speaking about Mahabharata, then Subhadra stood up and he told Krishna that you haven't spoken about the killing of Abhimanyu. Why haven't you spoken about killing of Abhimanyu? He was your nephew. And as Vasudevji heard about killing of Abhimanyu, he felt very sad. And he says, Subhadra, as she spoke that you haven't spoken about Abhimanyu, she fainted and she fell on the floor. And just by hearing that, Vasudevji also fainted. And then he speaks to Lord Krishna and he tells Krishna that, Krishna, I hear that you are speaking truth on this earth. You are known for speaking the truth. Vishruti. You are known for speaking the truth on this Prithvi, Bhuvi. Yeah? Please speak to me how Abhimanyu got killed. And Vasudevji became very emotional. Vasudevji tells him, I remember that Abhimanyu, he used to come like he's going to his Nana's place, right? His maternal grandfather. So he says, when he used to come, I remember his eyes were also like you. He was your nephew. And I remember when as a young Abhimanyu, he would come and he would tell me like self-praise, how children go and they tell their grandparents, I shot an arrow, I can do this, I can do this. So Vasudevji started recalling all those things. And then he says, I'm sure Abhimanyu cannot be killed just like that. He was such a great warrior. He was as strong as his father. He was as handsome, as good looking like his mama, like you, Arvindaksha. So he's addressing Krishna as Arvindaksha. Please tell me, why didn't you tell me about Abhimanyu's killing when you have spoken about? And then he says, I'm sure he won't have run from the battlefield. And then he suspected, he said, I suspect was Abhimanyu killed by Dronacharya and Karna, yeah, by some kind of scheme, by some kapat? Yeah, please tell me. And then Lord Krishna, it is said, now Vaishampayanji is telling Janmeja that Lord Krishna also started crying. He also felt that, he could feel the emotions. Even though he is Lord, but when he's playing that role, they're calling him, you are his mama. And Krishna also became very emotional. So then Lord Krishna started telling Vasudevji, he says to Vasudevji that no, Abhimanyu did not run away from the battlefield. He fought all these warriors single-handedly. And then he's saying that on that particular day, Arjun was taken away from the battlefield. On that day, Arjun was taken away from the battlefield. And all these people, they all got around him, right? Dronacharya, Karna, Duryodhan, Jayadratha, everyone, they just got around him. And when he fought with them for such a long time, but then because he was all by himself, then by kapat, by treachery, yeah, Dushasan's son killed Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu he was such a great warrior. He could not have been killed by, and Krishna saying, if they had given him a chance fighting one-on-one, he would have defeated all of them. He was such a great warrior. But my dear father, please don't worry. He has definitely gone to heavenly planets. He has definitely gone to heavenly planets. And then after hearing this, now Vasudevji makes a statement, which is very important for all of us to understand from this past. Vasudevji tells Krishna that on this earth, yeah, he says that Durmaram is Mar as in mrityu, dur as in very difficult. So he says, durmaram bata. But is, oh, alas. So he says, durvaram bata kale aprapte. Without time, aprapte, the mrityu, the death does not come without time. And then he gives his own example. He says, otherwise, why my heart, yatra me hridayam, dukha achadat, my heart is filled with sorrow. Then why doesn't it break into pieces? Na vidiriyate. He says, if death is to come by your own will, right? Why my heart is filled with so much sorrow? Then why doesn't it break into pieces? So he makes that statement to Lord Krishna. Now in this pastime, Prabhuji Mataji, the reason I discuss this is, Draupadi's 5 sons were killed. Krishna could not save them. Whereas in this case, Parīkṣit Maharaj, who was in the womb of his mother, and now, when Shaunakadi Rishi, they are asking the question, they are saying actually that Ashwatthama upasrishtaina, Brahma Shirshana Uru Tejasa. Ashwatthama, when he shot that Brahmastra, Uru Tejasa, it was so powerful, so burning. Uttaraya Hato Garbha, Ishen Ajivita. Now, Shaunakadi Rishi, they are asking Sut Goswami that after Ashwatthama shot that arrow, that son of Uttara, that Garb, he was killed. So Garb was destroyed. But Ishen Ajivita Puna, somebody who is already destroyed, Lord Krishna can revive him. Right? And he also went inside the womb of Uttara. That's what Mata Kunti is saying when Lord Krishna was about to leave. He's saying, Antar Bahir Avastitam. That's what Mata Kunti saw. That just now I've seen. But na lakshase moodadrisha nato natya dharovyat. But mood, who are moodas, who are in the bodily concept, my dear Krishna, they cannot see. And she straightway started offering prayers. Namaste Purusham Tadyam. Prakarte Purusha Param. Na lakshase moodadrisha antar bahir avastiti. Maya Javnika Channam. Because they cannot see you, because you are covered by the Maya. They are covered by the Maya. Their vision is covered by the Maya. So here Lord Krishna, when he describes that, and then he also narrates after that, and then he tells when Abhimanyu was killed. When Abhimanyu was killed, then Krishna is again saying to Vasudevji that after he was killed, then Subhadra went on to the battlefield and she started crying. As she was crying, then she was consoled by Mother Kunti. Then Mother Kunti came and Mother Kunti started speaking to Mother Subhadra, and she tells her, please don't worry. Idrisho marte dharmo ayam ma sucho yadunandin. Janmeji, Vaishampayanji is telling to Janmeji that Idrisho, that in this Martya Lok, everyone is destined to die. Idrisho Martya Dharmo Ayam. The dharma of this Martya Lok is like this. Please don't cry. Please don't stress yourself so much. Even though Mother Kunti, in her heart of heart, she was already so much, she has gone through so much, troubles herself. She herself was a widow. Just we discussed when Kunti Maharani offered prayers, they went through so many, but now she is consoling her daughter-in-law, Subhadra. So and then she tells Subhadra, look, your daughter-in-law, Uttara, she is pregnant. She is pregnant, so please control yourself. Idrisho says the Martya Lok, the dharma of this Martya Lok is like this. Everyone has to die. But you please console yourself and also look after your daughter-in-law Uttara, who is also pregnant. Uttara wanted to enter into the fire, but she was stopped at the time because she was pregnant. It was the tradition that when when a lady is pregnant, then she was advised not to enter into the fire because a new life is about to take birth. So then this is how she consoled. So Lord Krishna then tells to Vasudevji, and then he doesn't talk about the whole Ashwathama, how he shot Brahmastra on him. Yeah. So this is how they were consoled, and then he brought Mother Subhadra with him to Dwarka. Now going back to our chapter, now birth of Maharaj Parīkṣit. Yeah. So how Maharaj Parīkṣit was born. In our previous chapters, we've been discussing how, in the fourth chapter, actually this question was asked by the rishis, that please tell us about how and where Parīkṣit Maharaj met Shukdev Goswami. Why did Vyasadev had to write, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? In the fourth chapter, this question was asked, and then in the fifth and sixth chapter, then there was a conversation between Vyasadevji and appearance of Naradji and why Vyasadevji wrote. And then in the seventh chapter again, then Sud Goswami is telling that I will tell you about the birth of Parīkṣit Maharaj, yeah, who's because discussing his birth will give rise to Krishna Katha. Vakshaye Krishna Katha. Then he started speaking Krishna Katha, and then in between came the son of Drona punished, then Mata Kunti offered prayers, then Bhishma Pitama left his body, then Lord Krishna coming back to Dwarka. So now Shaunakadi Rishi, they come back to topic again. And then they are asking him that Garb who was killed, yeah, by Ashwathama's Brahmastra, yeah, Ishena Ajivita, Tasya Janma Mahabuddhe, Karmani cha Mahatmana, Nidhanam cha Yathev Asit, yeah, Sa Pretya Gatvaniyat, Tadidam Shrotumichhamu, Gaditum Yadi Manyase, Shraddadhanam na, Bruhi na Shraddadhanana. So they're saying, we are with full faith, we want to hear his pastime. What we want to hear? Tasya Janma, the birth of Parīkṣit Maharaj. Please tell us. We want to hear his birth. We want to hear his karmani. We want to hear his karma. Nidhanam, how he left his body. And Pretya, how he liberated after his leaving his body. What happened? What was the gati? Where he went to. So we want to hear these four things. Yeah. And then they also say, so similarly, if you want to hear that, we are trying to hear that, then very important what they are saying is, na, as in we, Shraddadhanana. Bruhi na Shraddadhanana. Bruhi as in please speak to us. And speak to us because we want to hear with full Shraddha. Yeah. We want to hear with full Shraddha. Yasya Jnanam Adat Shukar. Shukdev Goswami, what knowledge who received knowledge from Shukdev Goswami, or to whom Shukdev Goswami gave the knowledge. We want to hear about that. Please tell us. Yeah. So we'll discuss that. Before that, let's do Mangalacharan and then we will discuss. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamlam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Savadhetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhute Mahadbhir Yaima Puro Vibho Nirmaya Shete Yadamosha Purusha Bhunte Gunansho Dashasho Dashatmakam Solank Srishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me Shri Krishna Sharanam Sharanaagatam Katha Amritam Satat Pibatam Bhakti Vedanta Marga Pantanam Sarvaloka Rishide Janma Prasannam Sarvaloka Rishide Janma Prasannam.
So these rishis, they are asking about the birth of Parīkṣit Maharaj, and they said that you were talking about it, and Uttara's Garbha, which was killed by Hatho, by the Brahmastra, Brahma Shirshena Uru Tejasa. That Brahmastra, the fire from the, or the heat from that Brahmastra, we heard that her Garbha was destroyed. Please tell us about his birth, his karma, his liberation. He's leaving his body. We want you to know that. Now, Sud Goswami, before he speaks, first he speaks about the kingdom of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He says that Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was a Pipalad Dharmaraja, Ranjayan Praja, Pitravat Ranjayan Praja. Like a father, he was taking care of his Praja, all the citizens of Hastinapur. And Pipalad, it says prosperity, administered prosperity. Prabhupada translate. Very important. Administered prosperity. They were all prospering, but it was administered. It was nicely controlled. So the finances or the funds, everyone was getting whatever their needs were. Everyone's needs were being fulfilled. And how Yudhishthira Maharaj was taking care of them? Pitravat, like a father. You know how a father takes care of all the children? So Yudhishthira Maharaj was ruling like a father. And he says, Nispraha Sarva Kamebhya. His all desires were gone. He did not have any personal desire. A king is not supposed to have any personal desires. Yeah. So he did not have any personal desires. Why did not have any personal desires? Then Sud Goswami says, Krishna Padanu Seva. Because he was always serving. He was always focused on to the lotus feet of Krishna. So he did not have any personal desire. But his kingdom was flourishing, and he was supported by his brothers, other Pandavas, and his good wife Draupadi. Yeah. So because of, and then he says, what to speak of the opulences? He had so much opulence, and even the demigods wanted to have that kind of opulence. They will come and see. They will come and see how Yudhishthira Maharaj was doing. Up to certain time, the demigods would come. They would come and sit in the yagna. You know, when we performing a yagna ceremony, there is a share for Indra. There is a share for Agni Devta. So demigods would personally come and take their shares up to certain time. Now they're not coming anymore. Now we have become demigods ourselves. That's how we are behaving now. So they don't come. But demigods would come and see how Yudhishthira Maharaj was doing. They would aspire for that kind of opulence. This is how opulent his kingdom was. But Mukunda Manasa, because he had completely absorbed himself unto the lotus feet of Bhagwan Mukund, Mukund is who gives liberation. Muktin dadati iti Mukunda. So he had completely surrendered himself. So the reason Sud Goswami first talking about Yudhishthira Maharaj is, if you want a kingdom, if you want a lineage, because now in future questions, Yudhishthira Maharaj will be asking about Parīkṣit Maharaj, what kind of king will he be? When he will be asking, so before you have a son like Krishna, then you have to become a father like Vasudeva. Yeah? That's what Lord Shiva is saying in the fourth canto. So Lord Shiva is saying to Mother Sati that Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shaktitam Yad Iyate Puman Apavrata. Where Sattvam Vishuddham, we have mode of ignorance, then mode of passion, mode of goodness, and above that is Vishuddha Sat. So where Vishuddha Sattva is, that's what is called Vasudeva. Vasudeva is name of Vasudev's father, Bhagwan Vasudeva. So that is the state of Vasudeva. So that's what Lord Shiva is saying to Mother Sati. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shaktitam Yad Iyate Puman Apavrata. That's where Puman or Supreme Personality of Godhead can be seen. And then he says, He adhokshajo me namsa vidhiyat. He said that adhokshaj who cannot be seen by material senses, I myself pay my obeisances to that adhokshaj, to that Supreme Lord who is beyond the material senses. Yeah. So that's where you can see Bhagwan adhokshaj. Yad iyate tatra puman apavrata. That adhokshaj Bhagavan. So that is the point. If you want to have family like that, so that is why he is describing, before he describes the birth of Parīkṣit Maharaj. And then he says, then that Parīkṣit Maharaj, he says, he was in the womb of her mother. So now he's describing. So now look at this picture. So he says, Matur Garbha Gato Veera. That Veer, that warrior who was in the garb of her mother. Yeah. Matur Garbha Gato Veera, when he was in the womb of her mother. Yeah. Then what happened is, then as the Brahmastra was shot, yeah, Uru Tejasa, Astra Tejasa, then he saw the Supreme Lord. Dadarsha Purusham Kachit. He got the darshan of that Supreme Personality of God, that Puran Purush. Yeah, that Govinda Mali Purusham Tam Bhajami, whom Brahmaji is paying his obeisances. So he could get the darshan of that Puran Purush in the womb of her mother. And then he describes how was that Puran Purush. He says Angusht Matram. He was the size of a thumb. So if you focus on the Supreme Lord's, this picture, size of a thumb. Angusht Matram Amalam. Amalam is super pure, very pure, without any mud. Angusht Matram Amalam. Spurat. Yeah, Spurat as in blazing. Spurat Purat Maulinam. Now he is talking about his helmet, the mukut on Lord's head. So he says Spurat, blazing. Purat as in gold. Maulinam as in that mukut. That mukut was of blazing gold. Yeah, that's what Parīkṣit Maharaj saw. Yeah? And then he also says what he saw. He saw Tapta Kanchana Kundalam. Now he's talking about the Kundalam. So this is how Prabhuji Mataji, when we go in front of the Vigrah, this is how we take the darshan. You start from the feet, but this is the focus. That's the point that Sud Goswami is telling them. When we look at, we just see this as a picture and that's it, isn't it? But now he's going into the detail, how that Supreme Personality looked, and see Parīkṣit Maharaj sitting there and he's looking at that Supreme Lord. Tapta Kanchan Kundalam. So he saw his God, his gold. Tapta Kanchan. When we glorify Śrīmati Radharani, Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Yeah. So that's Śrīmati Radharani, who is molten gold. Her Abha is like gold. So that's how the Kundal work. Yeah. And then he says Shataj Aksham. Shataj is red. Aksh is eyes. His eyes were red. Why red? Because he was upset. Supreme Lord was upset. Because Ashwathama had thrown Brahmastra on them. So Supreme Lord was caring for his devotee. He was in Shataj Aksham. And then Gada Panim. He is holding his Gada. He is holding his club. Yeah. Gada Panim Atmana. He was holding his Gada. Sarvato Disham. In all directions. As you can see. Yeah. He's in all directions. And then he says, Paribhrantam, Paribhramantam. Yeah, he's all directions and he's rotating. Now around the womb, he was rotating around the womb to protect. Paribhramantam. Yeah. And then Brahmayantam, Gadam Muhu. So he is rotating himself around the womb. He is holding the club in his hand and he is also rotating the club. See, this is how he went inside the womb to protect his devotee. And then he says, Swagadaya, Astra Teja Swagadaya, Niharam Iva Gopati. You know, so he says, by the power of his gada, of his club, he diffused the Brahmastra. How he diffused the Brahmastra? He says, Niharam, Niharim Iva Gopati. How the sun comes? When the sun comes, all the dew dries up. This is how insignificant the Brahmastra was in front of Lord Krishna. And that's how he saved him. And then he says, as he was going inside the womb, now Sannikarshe, as he was going near, Parīkṣit Maharaj was looking at him. And he's saying, who is he? As a child, he was looking at it and he was thinking, who is he? Who could be he? And as he was doing that, then he says, Vidhuya tad amaya atma. Vidhuya means cleaning. Amaya atma means all pervading. Now that Supreme Lord who is all pervading, by cleaning that Brahmastra, the effect of the Brahmastra, that Supreme Lord who is Bhagavan Dharma Gub Vibhu, that Supreme Lord who is here to protect the righteousness, who is here to protect the Dharma, and he is Vibhu, all pervading, that Supreme Lord. As he was thinking, as Parīkṣit Maharaj was thinking, then he said, Tatraiva Antardadhe. That Supreme Lord Hari became invisible. Antardhyan. Right? So Parīkṣit Maharaj was focusing. He was thinking, who is he? And as he was doing that, he cleaned Brahmastra and then he disappeared. So this is what Sud Goswami described to Shaunakadesh. And then he says, now at the right time, then his time of birth came. And as he took birth, as he appeared, then Yudhishthira Maharaj, he invited all the Brahmanas. He invited the Brahmanas. He gave them a lot of gifts. As he knew how to honor the Brahmanas. He gave them cows, he gave them goats, he gave them houses, and he just, pleased them. And as he pleased them, then Brahmana started speaking. Now Brahmana started speaking, and they are telling Maharaj Yudhishthira that this son of yours, or this grandson of yours, he was destined to die. He was definitely going to die. But Rato wo anugraharthaya Vishnava Prabha Vishnava. Just to show special mercy to you, Yudhishthira Maharaj, that Prabha, that Vishnava, who is all powerful, Prabha Vishnava, who is all pervading and all powerful, that supreme personality of Godhead, just to show mercy to you, he has protected you. Now, did these Brahmanas see the attack of Brahmastra? They were not there. Only after his birth, so they could read. And they were telling to Yudhishthira Maharaj that he was almost destined to die, but he was saved just to show special favor. Now I want you to think again. Draupadi's 5 sons died. Why Lord Krishna could not save? Abhimanyu died. Who is his own nephew? Who is sister's son? But he is showing special favor to his devotees. Pandavas, nothing could happen to the Pandavas, and they went through so many tribulations. Abhimanyu, Parīkṣit Maharaj, he was killed inside the womb himself. But Supreme Lord went inside the womb. And you see how he's protecting him? He's rotating around the womb. He's taking his gada. He's also, circulating his gada, and he's inside the womb, and he's make sure that the Brahmastra effect is reduced. So that's what Brahmana is telling him. And then they say, now Rato means, Rato in Sanskrit, the meaning means restored. Tasmat namna Vishnurat. Iti loke bhavishyati. Tasmat, therefore, his name in this universe, in this lok will be Vishnu Rat, because he was restored by Bhagwan Vishnu. Now that is one name for Parīkṣit Maharaj. So if you hear Rat, Vishnu Rat. Rat means restored. He was restored, very important. He was killed, but he was restored by Supreme Lord. Yeah? Tasma, therefore his name will be Vishnu Rat. And Na Sandeho, Mahabhag, Mahatmano Maha. And without any doubt, he will be a great Mahabhag. He will be greatly fortunate. And he will be a greatest devotee of Supreme Personality. They made all those predictions. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj again asked those Brahmanas. He says, Api Esha Vanshan Raj Rishi Punya Shravan Punya Shlokan Mahatmana. Yeah? Will he be like, his Vanshaj, like Pandu Maharaj? Will he be like Pandu Maharaj and he will be able to take the glories of our dynasty forward? Will he be like that? Vanshan? Yeah. And then they say, yes, definitely. He will be like that when he asks those questions. So I'll quickly go through the qualities of Parīkṣit Maharaj as predicted by the... Can you see my screen or do I need to enlarge it? It's too... Can you see? Is it readable? Very small. Okay, I will just read you please here. Okay, I will read you please here. Okay. Prajavita, maintaining the subjects. Yeah. So maintaining the subjects, if you like Shakshad Ikshvakur Iva Manava. Yeah. Manu. Manava means Manu. Like Ikshvaku Maharaj. So in taking care of his subjects, his praja, his people, he will be like Manu Maharaj. Manava. Now you know where the word Manav comes from. Where the word Manushya comes from. We are Manushya because we have come from Manu Maharaj. So we are all his descendants in that sense. So he will be like Manu Maharaj in taking care of his praja. How do I go back? And then Brahmanya Satya Sandhaya. So he'll be like Lord Ram, son of Maharaj Dashrath. In taking care of Brahmanas, in honoring his words, he will be like Lord Ram, son of Dashrath Maharaj. Then in terms of giving the surrender, yeah, donor in charity and protector of the surrender, he will be like Shivi, Maharaj Shivi. Maharaj Shivi pastime is a very nice pastime. I will quickly share that. Maharaj Shivi was a king and he was known for giving shelter, taking care of anyone who would come into his shelter. And his glories were spread up to the heavenly planets. And once Indra wanted to test that. So 3 demigods, they got together and they said, we will go and test him. Yeah. Then one of them became, 2 demigods. So one of them became a pigeon and another demigod became hunter. Hunter as in, became eagle. So eagle was chasing the pigeon. Eagle was chasing the pigeon and the pigeon comes to Maharaj Shivi's courtyard. And he speaks to Maharaj Shivi that please protect me. Please protect me from this eagle. And then Maharaj Shivi says, okay, now you have come into my shelter. You are assured. And then eagle comes and eagle tells to Maharaj Shivi that he is my food. He is my shikar. You should give it back to me. Maharaj Shivi said, no. He has come into my shelter and whoever comes into my shelter, he will remain in my shelter. And then he offered, Maharaj Shivi said, you can take something else. I can give you any other food. You can eat something else. He said, no, I'm a meat eater. I'm a meat eater. You should give me meat. And if you think you are so charitable, then why don't you give your own meat? And then Maharaj Shivi said, okay. Then he put pigeon on one side of the scale and Maharaj Shivi cut his own, from here, from thighs. And he put it on other side of the scale. But every time he cut from his thigh and he put on the scale, the pigeon was heavier. And then he kept, cutting his own, and then putting on the scale. And pigeon was still heavy. And finally, Maharaj Shiva himself sat on the one side of the scale. And as he did that, then the demigods, that pigeon and the eagle, they came into their real forms. And then they said, all glories to you, Maharaj Shiva. You know, we heard of your glories, so we came to test you. So mind you, if you are doing some nice works, demigods will always test you. That is why those three miseries, Adhyatmika, Adhidevik, Adibhautik. Right? So you always get tested. We will get tested. Let's just pray for each other. We stay on the righteous path. We stayed on the marg of dharma. Yeah. So that is very important. So they're saying Parīkṣit Maharaj will be like Shiva, and we will hear that, you know, when he put snake in that Rishi Shringi's, you know, in that Rishi's neck, he could have counteracted that, but no, he accepted that. Yeah. Then he will be. My vision is now I'm getting old, so I can't read that. It's too small on this one. Swanana, yeah. So he will expand the glories of his own family members, of, like, you know, Vanshayan. Api Esh Vanshayan. That was the question asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj. He said, yes, he will be like Dushyant. So Dushyant's son is Bharat Maharaj. So they are all called Bharat Vanshi. So he said he will be like Bharat. You know, you know, India is called Bharatvarsh because of him. So I say he will be like Bharat Maharaj. And then he says, in the arrows, shooting the arrows, Dhanurdhar, he will be like two Arjuns. One is our own Arjun, Parth, and then another Arjun is Sahasrabahu, Kartavir Arjun. He was in somewhere in Madhya Pradesh in India, near Saraswati River. Mahishmati was the name of his Nagari, or, you know, his state. He was the king of that. Bhagwan Dattatreya had blessed him. He had worshipped Bhagwan Dattatreya like anything, and he was blessed. He had 1,000 arms. He could shoot arrow from 1,000 arms. So that's why they are saying he will be like two Arjuns. Kunti Putra and that Sahasrabahu. He'll be so strong. And then he will be like fire. Yeah, he will be irresistible like fire. He will be unsurpassable like ocean. Yeah. So they are describing his. He will be powerful like a lion, Mrigendra. You know, lion, and does anybody appoint lion the king of the jungle? Does anybody go and say, election, you are appointed the king of the jungle? He himself is the king, right? Yeah. So he's saying he will be like lion. He will be so powerful like a lion. Nobody will dare to come in front of him. Yeah. And then he will be able to give shelter like Himalaya. You know, Himalaya, the mountain, it can give shelter to so many. So he can give shelter to them. Titikshu, forbearance. You know, he will be tolerant. He'll be tolerant like Vasudha Vasam, like the Mother Earth. He will be tolerant. Yeah. Sahishnu, tolerant like parents. So he will tolerate. He will be forbearance like Mother Earth, and he will be tolerant like parents. You know how, like parents, you tolerate everything. So he will be tolerant for his praja like that. And Samya, he will be equal to everyone like Pitamaha, like grandfather or Bhishma Pitamaha. He will know there won't be any favoritism. He'll be equal to everyone. Prasade, in charity or in munificence. So he will be like Lord Shiva. Bhagwan Shiva is called Ashutosh. Lord Shiva can give everything. You know, Lord Shiva gave Lanka Nagari to Ram. Yes. So he can give anything and everything. He has no more, no attachment. Ashray Sarva Bhutana. He'll be shelter for every living entity. And like Yatha Devi Ramashray, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. You know how Lakshmi, Mother Lakshmi, takes shelter of of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, all the opulence, everything. So he will be shelter for everyone. Yeah. And then Sarva Sadgur Mahatmane. Yeah. He will be glorified by all the godly attributes. Yeah. Like Lord Krishna. He will have all the godly attributes like Lord Krishna. And then in the matter of magnanimity, he will be like Rantidev. Rantidev is another pastime. It will come in the future, cantos of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We'll discuss that. He is also, and he will be religious, ongoing religion, he will be like Yayati, Maharaj Yayati. That pastime will also come. So we'll discuss that in the future campus. Yeah. And then Dhritya, he will be patient. Yeah. He'll be patient like Bali Maharaj. Yeah. And he will be Krishna, devotee of Krishna. He will be devotee of Krishna like whom? Prahlad Maharaj. Yes. Great. So I think so these are the qualities of Parīkṣit Maharaj, because Yudhishthira Maharaj asked whether he will be able to take forward the glories of Bharat Vansh. Api Esh Vanshan, Raj Rishin, because in our lineage we had saintly kings. Will he be like them? Will he be able to take further the glories? Anuvartita, will he be able to follow in the footsteps of his forefathers? They say yes, he will be, and this is how they are describing his glories. And then they just talk about these are further qualities described. I think we've already gone through them. And then a few more, we'll just read through that. I'll read, you please hear. And then they're saying he'll performer of many Ashmed sacrifice and a follower of the old and experienced men. You know, if you do 100 Ashmed Yag, you could become Indra. So they are already predicted he will perform many Ashmed Yags, and he will be a follower of old and experienced, as in he will be respectful to the elderly. He will listen to them. And this child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. Raja Rishi. So his children will be like a saintly king. Janmeja Maharaj. Another thing I mentioned to you, Janmeja Maharaj and Lord Krishna's great-grandson, Vajranav, they both got together and they established so many temples in Vrindavan because everything was done. So he will be like father of the saintly kings. Yeah? And then they also say that after hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird. See, he's just born and they've already predicted that he will be killed by a snake bite. Takshak will come and kill. And then what he will do, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. He will take shelter. And after inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasdev, that is also described there. Yes, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. Akuto abhyam. Yeah? Fearlessness. He will become completely fearless. Yeah? And then, so his son would become famous in the world as Parīkṣit. Now, this is another reason why he's called Parīkṣit Maharaj. So, two names of Parīkṣit Maharaj. Vishnurat, because he is restored by Vishnu. And then Parīkṣit, because his son would become famous as Parīkṣit, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality who he saw before his birth. Thus, he would come to constantly contemplate him. That is why he will be called Parīkṣit iti Yat Prabhu. So his name other will be Parīkṣit. So that is why he is called Parīkṣit. Okay. So when you hear of Parīkṣit, then you should visualize he is the one who got darshan of Supreme Personality of God in the womb. That picture he's sitting in the womb, that should come in our minds. Yeah. In 3rd Canto 31 chapter, Bhagavan Kapil Dev very nicely describes how in the womb of mother the child is praying. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that if the soul is fortunate enough, we can recall our past 7 births. And there the child is praying with the folded hands that I don't want to come back into the mother womb again. I don't want to be hanging upside down in the womb. Okay. So that is the important lesson from this pastime. We all have been through that stage. And we are fortunate enough to be able to hear this pastime. What did Shaunak Rishi said? Shraddha Dhanana. We should have Shraddha in this pastime. I mean, today only I don't know. I mean, I sometimes watch the news, but try to take some lesson. Yes, yesterday only I heard there was one cricketer who died. Rod Marsh. We all, when we were young, we used to watch him. He died of heart attack. Today morning they said there was another cricketer, Shane Warne. He died of heart attack. But the other part is, yesterday I read Shane Warne tweeting a message for Rod Marsh's death. He himself was passing his condolences that so sad to see him go. He was a great hero. But today people are saying so sad to see him go. He was an icon, etc., etc. So that's how we should look at it. So we all have been through that. And what we're doing now is either we want to go back into the womb of another mother. No. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jatare shayanam. Ihe sansare bahu dustare, kripaya apare pahi murare. Bhaj govindam, govindam bhaj mudhamati. That's what Śrīpad Adi Shankaracharya is saying. Punarapi jananam. We're taking birth. Punarapi maranam. We're taking birth, we're dying. We're taking birth, we're dying. Please come, please come. We're taking birth, then we die. And then Janani Jatare Shayanam. In the womb of the Janani, in the womb of the mother, we go and sleep again. No. Bhaj Govindam, Govindam. So that is the whole point. That is the whole purpose of Prabhuji. So Parīkṣit Maharaj is born, and now see, Lord Krishna is so so dear to the Pandavas. Last chapter we discussed, Lord Krishna went back to Dwarka. Now after hearing Parīkṣit Maharaj's birth, Lord Krishna comes back again to her. See, this is how much he loves Pandavas. He came back to Hastinapur now again to celebrate the birth ceremony of Parīkṣit Maharaj. And then in the future shloka, Sud Goswami is saying when he went back, this time he took Arjun with him. Sa Arjuno. He went back with Arjun with him. Now Arjun went with Lord Krishna and he stayed in Dwarka. So this is how Krishna was so close to these Pandavas. He had so much affection. That is why Mother Kunti is praying, Vibdah Santutah Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru. Bhavto Darshanam Yatsyat Apuna Bhav Darshan. Mata Kunti is saying to Krishna, Krishna standing in front of her. She is saying, I want, my dear God, let those problems come again and again, again and again. Shashwat, same problem. Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru. Same problem, whatever happened should come again and again. Oh Jagat Guru, because Bhavato Darshanam Yatsyat. When we get your darshan, Apuna Bhav Darshan. Pune means again, Apuna means not again. We won't again have to take darshan of this Bhav Sagar again because we get darshan. So this is how merciful Lord Krishna was. So we'll stop here now. Yeah. So this was a small chapter. So I thought we will discuss some pastime from Mahabharata. And yeah, so we stop here.
Praise Guru Prabhupada ki.
Prabhupada ki.